Colonel Scott can see it.
Well, can't they find it, or what's the problem? Mr. Wesley?
Here we go. It's files numbered from 0 to 41 MTS, which were given to the evidence leaders as the set of POP's MTS series files that had been requested. Colonel, you may or may not recall this, but in advance of this request, the evidence leaders had already communicated to SABC that from the Lonman hard drive they had received 42 MTS to 48 MTS, and so didn't needed those duplicated. I don't know if you recall that.
No, not particularly, no.
It may explain why the sequence stops at 41, because the evidence leaders already had 42 to 48 from Lonman. Are you aware of who from SABC put together this collection of files for the evidence leaders in relation to the MTS series that the evidence leaders sought?
I can know that I have dealt with files, obviously, that look like this. Who put them together for you? I can only speculate. If they were handed over to you, it would have been through Colonel Victor, who was working with the police hard drive.
Colonel Visser or Colonel Victor?
Yeah, Victor Visser, sorry.
And Colonel, I just want to clarify, you didn't put them together. You don't recall putting them together onto a memory stick or an external hard drive for copying over to the evidence leaders?
I could have, but I don't recall it, as you say, no. What date were they received by the evidence leaders?
7 November. It's in their receipt is reflected in the email of 8 November, which is J36.
Well, what I do recall, Chairperson, while I was presenting evidence, or not evidence, but Exhibit L, it was during one of the lunch breaks that myself and Colonel Visser went to the evidence leaders' chambers in Rustenburg. And what I recall that is the two SABC POPs members, the video operators, were there as well. And I know that with my computer we were in there and we downloaded something to the evidence leaders. And it could be this. I'm not sure if this is what we're speaking about. But I know that we downloaded certain footage there to you guys that you mentioned that you didn't have.
Well, I may have to come back to that when I speak to people who were present there. I wasn't. But
I think you were, sorry, but just for the accuracy, I think you were, because I know the POPs members were still consulting with you. At that, I'm not talking about the meeting when you were on your phone. I'm aware of that meeting as well. This is a separate occasion. This was an unplanned or an uncalled per email uncalled meeting. And I recall that too, because when I walked out, I walked into the commissioner outside who was on his way to, and we were rushing to try and get our computer back in place in time.
There appear to have been, there must have been several meetings. The one at which this set was given was the meeting on the 7th of November, as is reflected in that
Okay.
email. You say that you may have put together this collection of files. It may have been Colonel Visser. You can't recall.
No, I don't recall.
And given that the evidence leaders were looking for a full set of MTS files, would you have satisfied yourself that this was a full set, whether you prepared it or Colonel Visser prepared it before it was handed over to the evidence leaders?
I'm talking now from, as I don't even really recall handing this over, but What I can say is that every time I have been requested, and even on times when I wasn't requested, where I have sat with the evidence leaders with our legal representation there, I've always made my computer open and available. So whatever I've given has always been everything I have. So if I did give that to you, it would have been what I had as a full set at the time, yes.
And if it was something that Colonel Visser had assembled, would you have checked to see that it was complete before it reached us?
No, I wouldn't have checked.
You were the expert on videos from SABC. I mean, you were the primary reference point for videos for SABC.
To put the videos and photos to represent as best possible the police's case in Exhibit L in the presentation. So I would simply sort through to see what was I felt and thereafter presented to get approval on what was applicable to go into Exhibit L to best present the police's case. I didn't go to check the numerical sequences and that all was there, and that I admit to. That it was not my aim, it was not my purpose. I wasn't working, as I would say to you, with the Nodal Point police hard drive, which has obviously got the evidence on it. I was working on Exhibit L, and what I worked with, obviously, is what I had.
But Colonel, that's in relation to Exhibit L. This was in relation to something slightly different, which was a specific request from the evidence leaders to SABC in relation to videos.
That's why I understand that, and this coming after the time when I was no longer the Nodal Point. So if it was dealing with evidence, and in this case what you want to put into exhibits, it had to come through the police's Nodal Point, which was the police hard drive, and not from me.
Okay, so if Colonel Visser had given us an incomplete set, you wouldn't have picked that up?
No.
Let's look at the set in a bit more detail. On its face, it looked like a complete sequential set up to the 42 MTS that we already had. We had 42 to 48. So you see it runs from 0 all the way through to 41. There are no breaks in it.
I see that, yes.
But when we received it and looked at it a bit more closely, there were a number of concerns that we had. The first was that the file names, although they looked the same, were actually a little bit different. Because this directory has a 000 in front of each file name. So if you, a quadruple 0 when you're talking about single digits. So 1 is quadruple01.mts. But if one goes back to the 40 MTS series that we regard as the authentic 40 MTS series, there's only 1 0 in front of each file number. So what is quadruple 01 MTS in this series, if it were to be numbered consistently with the 40 MTS series, would really be 001 MTS, or if we go to a double-digit number, 00020 MTS in this series to be consistent with the file numbering that would have come out of the camera that produced the 40 MTS series would actually have been 020 MTS series. Maybe, do you understand the point that I'm making in this regard, or would you like me to show you the thumbnails of the MTS series?
I'm looking at my own thumbnails of what was originally downloaded to me, and I also have it as those below 10 had a 00, but anything over 10 had a 029030.
So the numbering of the files in the original set was a 3-digit numbering with zeros to fill out the missing digits.
Yes.
But the numbering in this set of files was actually a 5-digit numbering.
Yes.
Can you provide any explanation as to how that might have taken place?
No, I really don't know.
We don't either. We had another concern, which is that when we looked closer, this wasn't a proper set of sequential files up to 41 MTS, because up to and including 41 MTS, which would then pick up with our 42 to 48 MTS, because it already included, or it included some of the files that already existed in the original 40 MTS series and the 100 MTS series, which came after 41. So if I can illustrate that to you. Let's look at the file there 20 MTS. If we can just play 20 MTS, which will be Triple J 73, the video 20 MTS is going to be Triple J 73. And if we can play it. Possibly with sound.
Of August 2012 until one report concerning the Lone strike. Here's the coverage.
Does this file look familiar to you, Scott?
The time is not what I do.
You can stop the file at the... do you recall that it is the source file for slide 157 that we referred to earlier?
Is that the crowd behavior?
Crowd behavior 1045.
Yes.
And you'll recall that when we looked at that source file earlier, we saw that in the original 40 MTS series, it was 042 MTS.
Okay, I'll take your word on that. I didn't make a mental point of it, but yes.
That will be evident from Triple J 17, but you can take my assurance for it. And when we went through this directory in more detail, we found a series of other examples like this, where files that were now numbered below 42 were in fact copies of files that had appeared in the original MTS series with numbers above 42 or in some cases above 100. For example, the file that we see in this directory, quadruple 06 MTS, which will be Triple J 75. If we can play Triple J 75, or merely just the front of the... If we can just stop it there, because that should be sufficient for recognition purposes. Do you recall seeing that file earlier today?
Yes.
That's the video of Mr. Matunjwa taken from the second POPs operator, which was 108 MTS when we looked at it earlier, and CC8 in the formal exhibit pack. Is that not correct?
Yes.
So, again, I want to put this difficulty to you that we have. A camera doesn't itself save a file twice under the same name. Are you aware of that?
I would think so, yes.
So we need to understand how the same files came to be saved under two different names in this case. We have the original set where files were saved either in the 40 MTS series or in the 100 MTS series, and now they resurface as part of a package running, well, part of a directory running from 0 to 41.
I don't think we've seen that yet, have we? We have the slide we're looking at the moment, or the clip we're looking at the moment, you tell us is also in the series up to 41. I don't think we've seen that yet, have we?
This is the file from up to 41. It's triple 06.
And I see the one we saw. I understand. The one we saw this morning was the same clip, but it was from a different series with a different number.
Under the name 108. Indeed.
Chair. Chair. I had thought we established during lunch that what may be of keener interest to the Commission is why objective evidence was altered, if it was. That we would obtain from the evidence leaders those discrepancies that are calling for an answer, because this witness is not going to be able to tell us why those discrepancies exist. we might have to go and get those witnesses who are able to speak to that point.
Mr. Sasson, isn't Mr. Semenya right? Isn't this one of the matters that's going to be dealt with in what we discussed during the lunch hour? Would effectively, we hope, be an agreed statement of discrepancies and so forth, which call for explanation.
Well, my understanding of the lunchtime agreement was really it related to Exhibit L, but I'm happy to extend it to video evidence more generally. But there is evidence that is within this witness's knowledge that may go to explaining at least some of the discrepancy.
So the first point is then the agreement lunchtime, which related primarily to L, will be extended generally to the video material. I think that's what Mr. Semenya said, nodded his head, and you agree with that. Now, the question is whether this particular piece of evidence is one where you anticipate the witness may be able to give an answer of his own knowledge.
Yes, I do anticipate that the witness may be able to help us, at least in part, understanding these discrepancies. But in order to do this, I have to run through a little bit more laborious cross-examination, and let me try and speed it up. So our fourth concern was that the sequence looked artificial because it didn't run chronologically. And to illustrate that, we printed out a view of the directory which is ordered by date and not by name. And if I can ask for that to be called up as Exhibit J 76. That's 180 of file 1. And we ordered this directory by date, and if one runs down the sequence, one sees immediately that the camera the video clips in the sequence are not chronologically ordered. So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then we skip past 20 to 21, and then back to 20, and then forward to 24 and 25, then back to 22 and 23, and then it resumes chronological order again.
You see that, Colonel?
I see that, yes.
Now, you see the problem. Are you able to throw light upon how it may have come about?
No.
Well, maybe you may be when I when I take you to our line of reasoning further. We've tried to reverse engineer this set from what we find on what is certainly on the Pretorius hard drive and to the best of our knowledge also on the Scott hard drive. I'll come back to you with specific details in relation to the Scott hard drive. And let me...
If we can just clarify that though, is it not the duplicate on the Scott hard drive of the Pretorius hard drive that I've updated over time?
Well, it may well be. I mean, I can't speak to the origin of files on the Scott hard drive. You can.
That's what I was giving evidence to yesterday, is that after I'd given everything over, I would sporadically, when I had time, go back to the police's master and try to update what I had. So I can't speak to the specifics of that. It's been a while back since I last did that, but...
Let me take you to the directories in question, and you can tell us whether you're familiar with them. There's a directory which we will call J 77, which is a directory /videos /16th CI, and I wonder if we can call that up. It's at pages 178 to 179. wonder if we can just hand you a printed copy, which may be quicker. We've called them up now. You see 3 files there.
Yes, I do, yeah.
And if we can go to their properties, we'll see that they were all saved on the 22nd of August 2012.
I see that.
Now, do you recall when I showed you the directory? Well, firstly, does this directory mean anything to you?
No. I don't think I have any POPs videos where there are only 3 videos in the sequence that I have.
We may have to come back to that, but for present purposes, I want to take you back to when I showed you the directory of 41 files that was given to us, and we identified a series of files that were out of sequence when we put them in chronological order. And that was J76. Can we go back to J76? And if we identify the files that are out of chronological sequence, we see the first one is 20 MTS, and it was saved on the 22nd of August. The second one out of chronological sequence is 24, and it too was saved on the 22nd of August, and the third was 25, and it too was saved on the 22nd of August. The 3 files that are out of chronological sequence are in fact in that directory, are the only 3 files in that directory. Everything else is in chronological sequence.
Also all saved at 8:30 a.m. apparently.
Yes, Chairperson. Colonel, would you agree that that would reflect that this is not when the files were taken, when the actual videos were taken, but rather when they were saved under a new name?
Yeah, well, obviously it can't be when they were taken, so it must be when they were saved, yes.
Now, perhaps we can now go to a directory which I think you will recognize.
Right, before we move on, what we saw a moment ago had the letter CI on it. Now, I would have thought, you can see the previous one that we saw, the three videos that we saw immediately prior to seeing this one. Can we see that again, please? There we go. You see, the letter CI, do they mean anything to you?
Crime intelligence.
No, I thought so. So it looks, prima facie, perhaps as a guess, maybe may cause more trouble. It's worth to raise the point, but it looks as if criminal intelligence or crime intelligence wanted those 3 files for some reason, and presumably they got them or saved them at 8:30 on the 22nd. And then, but I don't understand why they also saved this at the same time on the same date on the other document we saw a moment ago.
Chairperson, this is one of the reasons I remember. I recall the meeting with Advocate Jackleston in the chambers while I was presenting, because the POPs video operators were there. And when I walked in, they almost immediately accused and said, "We gave our files daily to Colonel Scott." And I thought, that's not so. But I think they were mistaken. They were giving their files daily. But from what I understood from instruction on what was supposed to be going on anyway, is that the intelligence services were seeking the material in order to start the process of identifying individuals and to try and see where suspects were, etc., as was going to eventually lead to phase 5 or stage 5, amongst others with the interviewing of arrestees, information of where to go to look to arrest people. So it could be what you are saying, that these were taken by crime intelligence for those specific means.
Prima facie, there's some connection with crime intelligence. That's all it occurred to me. I don't know whether the individual files are the kinds of files that they would have wanted, which would show clear pictures of people who it was considered it might be appropriate to arrest, but I don't know whether...
It's possible that their own video operator took the camera from one of the POPs video operators to try and get some footage of sort. Again, I'm speculating, but...
Who would be the person who would know about that crime? Would it be Brigadier Engelbrecht or Colonel Isaacs? What else?
We'll have to inquire, Chairperson.
Well, maybe we should go back and look at the thumbnails, because at least one of these files you will recognize. Can we go to the thumbnails? That file 25 MTS, we've seen previously, have we not?
Yes, is that Mr. Matunjwa and Nyala speaking to Brigadier Carlitz?
That's correct. Let's go to 20 MTS. We've discussed that a few moments ago.
Yes.
What's that?
That was the crowd behavior.
Right. And 24 MTS, is that image big enough for you to identify? It's one we've discussed previously as well.
Mr. Matunjwa's vehicle, I think, at the front at the protesters.
Well, it doesn't look as if either 24 or 25 would help to identify people who could be considered for arrest. It might be different in the case of 20. For arrest, it might be different in the case of 20.
Put themselves in a position of being identified.
Colonel, if we can go even a step further back, you will find, in fact, that all three of these files appeared in the original 40 MTS series that were taken by the undercover POPs operatives. We did, in fact, reverse it earlier today, when we were talking about the relevance of the 40 MTS series that wasn't included on the SABC hard drive. Do you recall that?
Yes.
So concerns about crime intelligence taking videos from a distance wouldn't have entered into this picture, and well, you accept that?
Well, as I say, I don't know who the authors are, and again, one would need to speak to the different parties involved who handle these cameras to establish what they did with their footage afterwards.
But Colonel, I thought we had gone past this point to a certain degree. We accepted that the 40 MTS series, from which the original sources of these files are drawn, was footage taken by a POPs operator on the 16th. We had agreed that the only footage taken by POPs operators on the 16th was the footage in the 40 MTS series and the 100 MTS series. Do you want to retreat from that agreement?
No, I'm just saying that, I mean, the option is open whether the POPs man is standing right next to this gentleman. But I don't want to get into an argument about that. I think it's speculation. Those members themselves can actually attest to, and I accepted this as being POPs video footage, yes.
Yes. Well, let's look at another directory with which I think you should be familiar. It's a directory called videos /16th camera 457 pop. Does that ring a bell to you? Camera 457 pop.
It does, yes.
And can you explain to the Commission what you understand that directory to be?
As best as I can recall, at some stage, I downloaded. Now, it's either the Lonmin video cameras that are named specifically after the camera numbers, or it was the POPs, the video cameras I received from POPs, where I gave the files the actual names. I think of the camera, possibly. The serial number on the camera, if I'm not mistaken.
In fairness to you, I think we should actually call that directory up for you. It's JJ78. Pages 172 to 174 of the Commissioner's bundle. And you'll see that this too is a directory that has files running from 0 to 41 and has 5 digits in each file name.
Yes.
And you're familiar with this directory?
Yes.
Do you recall when you first downloaded materials into this directory?
No, not specifically. I would have to rely on objective evidence to be accurate on that.
And what do you mean by objective evidence?
Well, if we can get the, I think it's called the image of my computer or of hard drives that can show.
But you said earlier that you thought that this was either footage from POPs operators that you downloaded onto your computer or footages from one of the Lonman cameras that you downloaded onto your computer.
They are different. It seems there are different versions of POPs footage. I mean, you're bouncing between the different thumbnails on all of these. And to commit to knowing something, I have what I have downloaded from myself here that I had at the time within at least 2 days after the incident. I would have had this at some stage. It would have either been given to me by the POPs members, or if it was obtained through Colonel Victor receiving the footage through the Lonman Section 205, I may have received
Colonel
it that
Victor,
way.
you mean Colonel Visser?
Colonel Visser. I'm sorry, I'm calling him on his first name. Colonel Visser. I may have received it that way. But I have definitely viewed these and had them in my possession at some stage.
So you have definitely had them in your possession, you have definitely viewed them, you cannot tell us with certainty at which point they were downloaded.
Yes.
Well, let's move to a third directory which I'm hoping will be of a similar nature. That's a directory called Camera 407 POP in /videos/16. It's JJ79, pages 175 and 177. Those are the properties, or the first half of the properties, because there are 47 files in this directory. I wonder if we can go back to the thumbnails.
I do stand to be corrected, but because I'm pretty sure it was me who created the 457 POP camera number. I think so. I almost recall that I would have done that at the time that they were given to me. Which would have been sometime after the 16th close by.
The camera 457 POP.
Both of those numbers.
And 407
yeah.
POP.
But,
and when you say when they were given to me, are you referring to the memory cards inside the cameras that were 457 and 407?
I'm assuming so. I mean, I don't know of any other way I would have downloaded that video other than from a memory card.
I don't want you to be under any misapprehensions here, because what's up on the screen is still camera 457 POP, and we want 407 POP, just so that you can clarify that.
Yes.
This is 407 POP. I beg your pardon. I've been taking you. What I said in relation to 457 was first in relation to 407. 407 is the 41 thumbnail file. Can we see 457 now, which is JJ78? JJ78. Sorry, JJ79. I beg your pardon. And the thumbnails on JJ79? Colonel, I must apologize, but you're familiar with, there are 47 thumbnails on 407. We can give you a hard copy if you would like to look at it. Would you like to look at the hard copy?
No, it's fine.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, if there's a need to look at a hard copy at any stage, please ask for it. Now, we looked at those 3 directories and we reverse engineered the set that was given to us. So the starting point of the reverse engineering, and maybe we should hand up a document which illustrates it visually, which is easier for explanatory purposes. Can we put up J 80, which will be pages 80 to 84? If we can go to the next page where it starts. Now, the first slide that you see is the selection of files that was given to us, the 41 files that were given to us, and we've ringed the ones that are out of date sequence. Okay, if we can go to the next slide. Those three that are out of date sequence, and it shouldn't say Colonel Scott hard drive because that was the slide was made at a time when we thought that the Pretorius hard drive was the Scott hard drive. This is the Pretorius hard drive, and if I can ask that reference to be corrected.
Sorry, if I can also just ask, it's actually the SABC master hard drive. I think she's actually sweating on the other side. She's only the nodal point.
Okay, the SABC
custodian, I think.
She's the custodian,
yeah.
but yes, it's...
So we'll call that the SABC master hard drive. In that directory on the SABC master hard drive, you will find the three out-of-sequence files. We've already traversed that. Can we go to the next page? Now we're back. Now we're showing the 47 files that are on the camera 457 POPs directory, which is in this instance taken from the SABC master hard drive, but which you have confirmed is a directory with which you're familiar, and you've said it is one which you recall as probably having been downloaded from the video operators.
Yes.
We've ringed the first 21 files in that directory, circling file number 20 because that's one of the out-of-sequence files on the other. So files 1 to 19 and 21 of the set that was given to us came from this directory. If we can go to the next slide, then we've looked at camera 407 POPs directory. Again, we've ringed 24 and 25 because those were the out-of-sequence ones on the directory that was given to us. But the balance running up to 41, 22, 23, 26, 27, 28, 29, all the way through to 41 came from this directory. So it looks like someone assembled a set from 1 to 41 by taking pieces from one directory, from another directory, and then from a third directory. Would that be a fair inference to draw from what we see?
Through the line of evidence you're leading, it would be fair to assume that, yes.
Now, when we saw that, we immediately started to be a bit suspicious because it looked like what we got was a reverse engineered set. And fortunately, we've got the original Lonman MTS series as a control, so we weren't worried that there were missing POPs 40 or 100 MTS files dealing with the 16th of August, which I must confess would otherwise have been a suspicion that we may have entertained. But the POPs video operators also filmed after the 16th of August. Are you aware of anything that the POPs video operators may have filmed after the 16th of August that hasn't been shown to the Commission and that may be of relevance to the Commission and maybe something that someone with a misguided loyalty to SABC may not have wanted the Commission to see?
Well, All I can say is in the building of the presentation, police presentation, my concentration was up till the 16th of August. I didn't have interest in any videos or photographs, for that matter, that took place after that. There was no need for that, and I didn't take the time to go through any of it.
Do you know what's been shown to the Commission, or do you merely know what's been provided to the Commission? Because I don't think I've seen you here all the time.
No,
in fact, most of the time I haven't seen you. So you might know what's been provided to us, but I don't think you know what's been shown to us. But the real point of the question, I suspect, is what's been provided to us.
Indeed, Chairperson, the question should go to what's been provided, not what's been shown.
Well, I've always been of the opinion that everything that we've had has been provided to you. And I know that at times where gaps have been identified, where we've even had to call people back in, members of the police, to come and fill in those gaps, even those gaps were filled and provided, or our statements given. And I think the majority of that was done in November. So I've always stood of the opinion that whatever was outstanding was provided to the full degree.
Well, when we looked harder, we looked at the bottom half of this diagram, and we saw a whole lot of files from the 18th of August. All of those files from 22 MTS onwards we inspected and we established, with the exception of possibly of the out-of-sequence ringed files, were from the 18th and 19th of August. And so we then went to look on the Lonman hard drive of what was there on the 18th of August on the Lonman hard drive. And you'll recall that I took you to those files yesterday as J18. So can we call up J18?
A long time coming, but presumably it's on the way.
Maybe it's just a thought that I hear, Chairperson, what's been said many a time. But a question I have to ask is, if I may, whether these cameras and cards and so on have been in the police's possession from the time that they were given to the police. Because obviously they couldn't have been if Lonman also has a full copy of some sorts of whatever was on the cameras and the cards.
It should be J19. I apologize, not J18. I hope we don't have to double the delay. J18 is of the 17th.
Yes, you hear the question the witness asks, though. He says, repeat your question. I don't think Mr. Shaskerson heard it.
I'm just trying to myself get to understand, because I did confer with Colonel Visser now in the break, and he says that he received the full SABC POPs videos from the evidence leaders who had received it from Lonman, that he didn't even have the full set. So, and this was somewhere in November. And the question I was just posing is, I've always been of the opinion that SABC had those cameras in their possession from the time that they were taken on, I think, the 14th till now. But obviously that can't be the case if Lonman has a full set of the videos as well.
Colonel, where this line of cross-examination started was with a set of files that were provided to us by SABC on the 7th of November. Are you or Colonel Visser suggesting that we gave SABC files that we had obtained from Lonman sometime between the 1st and the 7th of November, and then when we asked for the missing files, SABC gave back to us something that we had already obtained from Lonman?
No, I'm reflecting what he said, that it's after we had gone through the process of giving you everything we had, he had still had a shortage of files, which he then was managed to download from the evidence leaders.
I see. So his set has not been complete. It was not always complete. But presumably the files with which we are concerned now fall outside the class of files which was incomplete when he or somebody else from SABC produced the directory that was given to the evidence leaders on the 7th of November?
I'm losing you. I'm sorry.
It was a fairly convoluted question, but where this line of cross-examination started was with a series of files that were given to the evidence leaders on the 7th of November by SABC.
Correct.
Now, SABC must have had those files in their possession prior to the 7th of November to give them to the evidence leaders on that day.
SABC being Colonel Visser and the nodal point, yes.
Well, let's stick with SABC at this stage rather than Colonel Visser, because if Brigadier Pretorius is getting anxious that we're referring to...
No, I'm just clarifying because Colonel Visser, as myself, only had what we were given. If there were still files in the possession of the video operators, obviously that was not something we were aware of or knew.
Yes, but a set of files was given to us. Those were clearly in your possession.
Yes.
Now, we compared the bottom half of that set with what we see in the original 40 MTS series as it runs through onto the 18th of August, where it picks up at 49 MTS. You'll recall that the last video made on the 16th was 48 MTS.
Yes.
And what we noticed was that there were only 3 files in the batch that you gave us, or 3 files in this real, should I call it, the original 40 MTS series for the 18th of August, that were not included in the bottom half of the batch that you gave us on the 7th of November. And the 3 were 49 MTS, 52 MTS, and 53 MTS. We then went to look on the SABC hard drive and we could find none of these files either. And 49 MTS particularly interested us because if we go back to the camera 407 directory, which is Triple J 79, or even if we go to it as exhibited in Triple J 80, let's look at it in Triple J 80, which will be easier. Can we have Triple J 80? So there's the 407 directory as exhibited on Triple J 80, where the yellow line demarcates what was given to us, and anything outside the yellow line wasn't given to us. And we see that 21 is just outside the line of what was given to us. And 21 turns out to be file 49 of the original 40 MTS series that we found on the Lonman hard drive. So one of the 3 files, one of the only 3 files that wasn't given to us, turned out to be one that just missed the cut, as it were.
– 21 and 22 are the same briefing, are they, Mr. Jaskins?
They are, in fact, of the same briefing. But they record different aspects of the same briefing. 22, Commissioner Hemrat, you'll recall, is a file that has been exhibited already. I forget its exhibit number, but we mentioned it in commission yesterday. Triple G 30. Can I ask you to look at the thumbnail of 21, and maybe if we can zoom in on it, because it may help you to recognize that video. Can we just try to zoom this picture so that that thumbnail of 21, which is on the left-hand corner of the yellow line, becomes more visible? Do you Is that big enough for you to recognize? It's getting bigger. The man at the left-hand side of that thumbnail.
In the blue clothing?
In the blue clothing, yes.
Well, if I look at the next movie or video piece, it would be Brigadier Carlitz.
Yes, it is in fact Brigadier Carlitz. Do you recognize the venue?
Well, if they're on parade, it would need to be at the rear staging area around the jock.
Yes, it is in fact. And if we go to the properties, you can accept it from me that 21 is a video that ran for 13 minutes 54 seconds and ended at 10:14 on the 18th of August. Now, at paragraph 99 of your statement, page 99, paragraph 28, you mention the visit of Julius Malema on the 18th of August.
That's correct.
And it seems almost that you mention it only to say that you had nothing to do with the SAPS deployment for the day because you were busy preparing a presentation for the President. Do you recall that?
If this is the Friday the 17th, then it would be, yes. I was...
Well, it's the 18th, which is the Saturday.
Oh, yeah, well, the planning for this, for the Julius Malema deployment. I wouldn't have had anything to do with the planning, no.
Yeah, and you say that in paragraph 28. In fact, your only mention of the Julius Malema visit is to say you had nothing to do with the planning for it.
Yeah.
Can I ask you why you thought it was important to address in your statement that Mr. Malema had come on the 18th only to say that you had nothing to do with the planning for this visit?
I think firstly just to give a breakdown of where I was on the days after the incident and to show my activities, but in stating I specifically had nothing to do with the planning of that because I had to do with the planning after that event again of maintaining the order in the Marikana area, as well as assisting with the plan which built in the memorial service, which was to come as well. So this was the only event that I didn't, in fact, have an input into.
And you say you didn't have an input into the planning. Were you present at any stage of the police operation on the 18th of August, at the parade on the 18th of August?
I don't think so.
What we see in that video 21, which is also 49 MTS, is Brigadier Carlitz addressing the SAPS members on parade. Do you recall seeing a video of that nature?
No.
Well, maybe we should play it for you and just ask you thereafter to reflect on whether you have seen it before. Can I ask that the video, which is 49 MTS, be played and it's be given the exhibit number JJ81. Video 49 MTS. Taken on 18 August 2012 at 10:14 with duration 13:54.
13:54.
And for this video, it is quite important that we hear the sound because it's the sound that's noteworthy, not the images.
A little bit of silence. There is some radios that is on. Just turn it off for a while.
626.
Who is here for the first time? Is there any group that is arrived now?
10.
Can I just see by way of hands for the first time that you are deployed?
2011.
Give me an indication you are from? Northern Cape. Oh, that is a group that arrived?
4 members of the SAPS are going to...
This morning. That's group 4, 5 o'clock.
Here's the coverage concerning the briefing session by Colonel Collins and by Brigadier Collins.
Okay, those two groups. All right, we will deal with them. For the group that arrived just now, we are going to orientate you on a map. All right, so when we finish, we will orientate you on a map. Today's information is, and we are already dealing with the borders, the most important thing. The people in civilian. You are from? Texas. Where? Huh? Westport. You are from? Westport, you? Huh? 40. Right. They want to make sure because otherwise we brief the media. I don't know all the places. Ladies and gentlemen, the information is, and there's no secret, that Mr. Julius Malema will visit us today. The purpose of the visit is that they want to take the copy back. Alright, now all of you that have been here, we know where the first scene was and we know where the second scene was. Now the people want to regroup from the village. That is the crime and intelligence information. Information is that Mr. Malema will come, regroup the mine, and then inform them to go back to the copy, go back to the strike, and then the information is that they're going to provoke the police. They also sent a message to the media to say, come and look how the police is treating us. Alright, so you will definitely be provoked, and then there will be action taken from there. What we're going to do in preventative measures, we already briefed the commanders. We will be issued, and therefore all of us, I said this morning, the group that, the Thursday group, the group that was here from Thursday, was involved in that incident. We're going to take you for the administration part, the debriefing part, and to make sure that all of this, the 50s, everything is in place. But for now, that group also going to deploy. Everybody we're going to deploy towards the copy. That is now inclusive, NIU, TRT, POPs, K9, mounted support, mobile operations, detectives, everybody. We're going there to assist that we're going to pick up the barbed wire. You are aware that the barbed wire was thrown in front as a cordon for the police. Now we're going to take the Nyalas. Very important, so we're going to deal with it now. I think we got 19 Nyalas. So think for yourself for now, the commanders, who is those Nyala drivers? In a short while we'll ask the Nyala drivers to step to the front. We have to take today your name, your cell phone number, your call sign. And we also ask that the person who marked the Nyalas on top, there's still black paint left. Your Nyalas that came from other provinces, you'll mark on top with a proper call sign. Then the driver will make sure what is a call sign on top. We only work with that call sign. So for me that is crucial, the Nyala drivers. Whenever we move out, we will move out in a contingent. There's no threat at this stage, so Nyala soft tops, everything. The idea is we're going to pick up that barbed wire. Then we're going to hook it. There's enough mine gloves. They're going to give us hooks as well as enough gloves. The more we are, the quicker we can pick up those wire. Then there's only 6 cards, so it's not going to take us that long. If 10, 20 people tackle one, it is minutes, then it's through. Then those 6 barbed wire, we're going to redeploy them at the very same copy, but closer to the copy. Alright, those people that don't know the area, it's fine, I will brief you on the map. The bigger copy as well as the smaller one, we're going to encircle the whole copy. Not from the entrance from this side, where we normally approach it from the forward holding area 1 and go around the, the power station. We're going to start at the other side, at the other side of the copy. Not the side that we approached them from during scene 1, on the other side. There, the Nyala drivers, the commanders take note. We're going to close from that side, from the power station, right around, but very tight towards the copy, not so far, very tight, so that we make a proper circle over the second, the smaller copy, go back very tight, up to the time where we reach the power station again. If we do not reach the power station, and there's not enough, because it's about 6 or 7, that open space between the last end and the power station, there we're going to deploy 2 or 3 of our armored vehicles. Okay, so far you are with me. Then the mine, we got additional barbed wire that can cover about 1 or 2 kilometers, the other barbed wire. They will also make it available with their vehicles, but they don't have enough personnel. Those must just be put on the western side copy, the second scene, you remember? The second scene. What we're going to do there is from the southern side, this side, my left, if we approach the copy, we're going to close it, encircle that whole copy up to the point where the canters went in. Those that were at the copy, you remember. there's a space where we put the canters in, those 5 to load all that suspects. There's 259 people arrested. So that space will be left open. Now that will become our base camp. Alright, we will just come report here, but the Northwest people, you know, wherever we have a problem, we go and we make a base camp in the middle of that problematic area. Are you with me? So then from there on, that will be your base camp. That is where we stay, that is where we deploy from, that will be our base camp. That second copy got enough space in between, there the people can even input the soft-top vehicles. Alright. We will make toilet facilities available there, everything there. The breakfast, the lunch, the supper if needs be will be there. During the night we will have sufficient lighting from the mine that will be deployed on the outskirts there. Alright. We will use the remainder of the barbed wire to close off in between areas so that if there's any channeling, they can just use about a space of 20 meters or 10 meters or whatever the case may be. That is for our protection as well as for the community that go to work and walk through there for their own protection. Any questions on this so far? Alright, but therefore we need the commitment of all the people. I've seen yesterday afternoon and I've seen it again this morning, the morale of the people is very high. So from the management side, thank you. I believe most of you have listened to what the Minister has said. Yesterday, after we went from here, we were addressed by the President himself.